Well, let's move on then. Stay with this conversation. Bring into the discussion, we're joined this evening, in fact, by Professor Jacob Mofokeng, independent crime and security analyst. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. So we were listening a short time ago to Cedrick Nkabinde laying down, if you will, the context of his history with Minister Mchunu even before he became his chief of staff. But interestingly, today, he became the first person, the first witness that members of parliament sent packing because there was simply so many inconsistencies in his story. How damning is that for Nkabinde?
Well, good evening to Megila and good evening to SABC's viewers. It was indeed a very challenging, on the credibility of Cedrick Nkabinde in terms of being, the first witness to be sent home packing because, his testimony collapsed under scrutiny. So it will really put some bit of holes then on what he might have planned, to bring before the Ad Hoc Committee. We expected him, to be able to, poke holes on the testimony provided by General Mkhwanazi. But, the moment when the MP started, scrutinizing, his testimony, then he contradicted himself many times. Hence, then the committee chairperson, Mr. Xolanin, announced the suspension, immediately after lunch, citing, unacceptable nature of him, Mr. Nkabinde's admission that of his affidavit were, in his own words, it's unsacked. Right. That's why then the MPs were very irritated by his admission.
Is today then, what happened today, is it enough to rule Cedrick Nkabinde as an unreliable person to help this committee reach a credible and honest conclusion about what it's been set up to investigate?
Yes, remember he was brought to the ad hoc not as someone who's accused of anything, but as possible list of witnesses who will assist the ad hoc committee to be able to make insightful, meaningful understanding in terms of these allegations, but for him then to be sent back, to be able to go back to the drawing board, it really puts him as someone who's very unreliable. Even if then he could have do, some, cash-ups in terms of being assisted again, then he is someone who's been standing to be accused of not being credible.
He also spoke about a meeting between his boss, Minister Mchunu, and Brown Mokhotsi, the apparent political fixer who's also accused of involvement in criminality. And interestingly enough, he says this meeting did not take place at Mchunu's private residence, but rather at an official residence. In what ways, then, does it chip away at the evidence that Minister Mchunu gave about his relationship with Brown Mokhotsi, because he very much sought to create a distance between them and the level of familiarity?
Yeah, we realized that under persistent cross-examination from MPs, Nkabinde also appeared confused about whether meetings took place at Mchunu's private or official residence, before retracting his initial claim and blaming an oversight. So it really put him to say that, as someone who is close to Minister Mchunu as a chief of staff, someone who will always, he corrected himself many times because he did indicate that, there was now and then a close conversation and he was someone who's very close, but he really put himself under scrutiny to say that he cannot be reliable because he was confused, especially when coming to dates, as well as the places where these particular meetings took place.
So when he does return, I think he's been given about 10 days to think about this moment, and an honest reflection, the chairperson of the committee said, is what Mr. Nkabinde now needs to do during this period of about a week or so. How should the committee proceed with his evidence going forward? And what does he need to bring to the table, especially as someone who has been implicated in some of the allegations made by the KZN Police Commissioner, Mkhwanazi, if he wants to clear his name?
Well, I think it's him as well as the senior counsel advocate Daranse, because of how then he was also attacked, during, misunderstandings at the committee, to say that then he did not prepare Nkabinde in terms of what actually is expected of him. So I think, coming back after 10 days will be something that, he was supposed to, provide with credible evidence, especially then they're going to back to the questions that he could not answer. And then also to give assurance to the committee that indeed he did his homework. And then the evidence that he's going to give, then is something that he cannot retract later. Because remember, the ad hoc does not have time, even though, Mr. Khanyan indicated that he asked for, for postponement because of the avalanche of information and documents as well as witnesses that they have to go through. So coming back then, after whatever days that the committee will have given him, so we expect someone who will be clear as well as sober-minded in terms of the credibility of the information, dates as well as the places where Minister Mchunu met, Mokhotsi.
Professor Jacob Mofokeng, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Independent crime and security expert speaking to us about the latest from the parliamentary inquiry into allegations of corruption and interference in the criminal justice system.